Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about flower containers. I recently created 2 containers for my balcony with flowers, and surprisingly, while there technically are no rules, I recently learned that there are a few things that you might want to consider before investing in flowers for your container. Some of the things that I took into consideration when deciding which flowers to pick was things like the size of the flower, as in how big it'll grow, whether it's an annual or a perennial. I personally really like to invest in flowers that will grow back the following year. Something else I took into consideration was the soil type. So, how well does it need to drain? Is it going to play well with having different types of flowers around it? And lastly, the amount of sun that the plant requires. So, ideally, you wouldn't want to plant a flower that doesn't like too much sun, that requires a lot of shade, next to a plant that requires a lot of sun. But let's just go ahead and get right into it. Initially, I had used this planter box for some leftover lettuce that I had, and I also popped in a leftover lavender that I had. I purchased them in a bunch of 6. I wasn't really satisfied with the use of the box. I don't have much real estate on my balcony, so I figured that I should actually remove these to a smaller planter and then actually use this balcony box for some flowers. Just a little side note, I've been growing my own lettuce on the balcony, and so far it's turned out really well. The lettuce is a lot larger now than it was when I took these videos. So if you're interested in seeing a video on that and how to grow lettuce on your balcony, let me know in the comments and I will definitely do that. So there are certain people that believe that you shouldn't mix the previous soil that you used for a certain plant with another plant. To be honest, unless I notice that there's an infestation of some type of bug or the soil is really old, I don't really mind just switching it out for a different plant to use. So I start by sifting through some of the soil, moving it around just so that it can breathe a bit. And then what I like to do is add some slow release fertilizer. This I purchased from a local plant center in Berlin. And I'm just gonna go ahead and add a nice amount so the plants can go ahead and use that eventually. I'll go over the specific type of plant that I purchased, but before we get into that, the most important thing I would say is to figure out the positioning that you'd like for your plants. So after a few moments of trying to figure out how I'd like my box to look, I have finally decided on the layout. So the first flower that I'm gonna go ahead and plant is called a deep purple. The scientific name was on the pack, but otherwise when I try and look it up, it just comes up as deep purple. So let me know in the comments if you know what this plant is actually called, if it has a different name. This plant, I believe, is a perennial. And so what I ended up going for with this box was 2 annuals and 2 perennials. For those of you who aren't familiar with those terms, annuals are typically flowers that will blossom or will bloom for 1 year, and then after that will just go directly to seed and won't come back the following year. Whereas perennials are flowers that will bloom for at least 2 years, if not more. The next plant that I chose for my box is this blue dwarf lavender. And I've grown this from really small, and I decided that as this is also a perennial, I will get a lot of use out of it. So just remember, whenever you're pulling your plants out of their pots, to loosen them up a bit, and then you always want to try and just tease the roots. So I usually just rip them open a bit, and this is really to encourage the growth so that it doesn't just stay stuck in that root ball. The next flower that I chose is a Snapdragon. I really love Snapdragons. They're so beautiful and they grow quite high. This variety isn't going to grow that high, which is why I chose it specifically for this box, and it also really likes sun. So far the 3 plants that I've chosen do well in a lot of sunlight and moderate shade, so far so good. And finally, for my last plant, I chose a dahlia, which is also an annual. And to be honest, I just love how these flowers look when they eventually bloom. The flowers are just so beautiful. If you've never seen a dahlia, I would highly recommend that you look it up. They are really, really beautiful. So based on the research that I did, for the most part, all of these flowers don't require too much water or too little water, so they should fare quite well next to each other. Once the year is over, I expect to have to remove the Snapdragon and the Dahlia, which is why I also chose to have them together. So next year in the spring, when I finally plant new flowers, I can just easily take these out. Also in the fall, if they dry out, or by the winter time, I can just replace it with another lavender or another type of flower that is winter hardy. And finally, this is our finished product. I think it looks super great. I'm really happy with the colors that I chose. I'm really excited for the lavender to bloom. And I think that the choices that I made are going to result in beautiful flowers all summer long. I really hope I was able to inspire or give any of you some ideas on the type of flower containers to put together. Let me know what some of your favorite flowers to use are. I'm really excited to know what other people like to put in containers. Alright, so I think that brings us to an end. Thank you again for watching my video. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!